This state looks completely ordinary. Flat fields, quiet cities, nothing dramatic about the landscape. No ocean, no mountains, no obvious reason why anyone would call it important. And yet, Ohio has voted for the winning U.S. president in 14 out of 15 elections. Ohio sits at the intersection of more major highways than any other state in the country. Ohio's ports move 60 million tons of cargo every single year, rivaling actual coastal harbors. And right now, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Meta are pouring over $10 billion into Ohio's farmland. This state that looks like nothing turns out to be everything. And the reason comes down to one invisible line that almost nobody talks about. Look at this map of Ohio. There's a line running across it. You cannot see it from the ground. It doesn't follow a river or a ridge. It slips quietly through farm fields and small towns, so subtle that most Ohioans have never heard of it. But this line decides the fate of every single drop of rain that falls in this state. North of the line, water flows toward Lake Erie, then into the St. Lawrence Seaway, then into the Atlantic Ocean. South of the line, water flows into the Ohio River, then into the Mississippi, then into the Gulf of Mexico. One state, two oceans, one invisible line. This is called a continental drainage divide, and Ohio sits directly on top of it. Roughly a third of Ohio drains north, 2/3 drain south, and that split, that single geographic accident, is a reason why Ohio became a hinge on which American trade, migration, and power has turned for 200 years. Indigenous travelers knew this line before any European arrived. Their portage trails followed the lowest crossings, the saddle points where the divide was narrowest, threading canoes from one basin to the other. Later, American engineers mapped those exact same corridors for canals and railroads. The line nobody can see became the route everyone followed, and it starts to explain something that has puzzled political scientists for decades. How does a state that looks this ordinary end up deciding almost every presidential election? The Ohio River stretches nearly 1,000 miles, from Pittsburgh all the way to the Mississippi. And for early America, this was not just a river, this was a highway. By the early 1800s, thousands of flatboats drifted downstream every year, packed with flour, pork, whiskey, and timber, heading from the new towns of Cincinnati and Marietta all the way to the markets of New Orleans. Cincinnati's wharves ran 24 hours a day, workers loading barrels and bales under torchlight, steamboats lining up 3 deep at the riverbank. The river turned Ohio into money. But then the Ohio River did something no trade route is supposed to do. It became a moral boundary. To the north, Ohio, free soil. To the south, Kentucky and Virginia, slave states. The same river that moved whiskey and timber also moved people, enslaved people, risking everything to cross its waters. In the town of Ripley, abolitionists built safe houses on the bluffs above the river. Lanterns hung in windows as signals. Midnight crossings on winter ice floes. People clinging to frozen debris and freezing water, because the other side meant freedom. The Ohio River was not just an economic artery. It was a line between slavery and freedom. And the towns that grew along its banks, Cincinnati, Portsmouth, Marietta, they carry that history in their foundations, in their old warehouses, in the stories that still travel downstream. But while the south of Ohio was defined by this river, the north was being transformed by something even bigger. Look at Ohio's northern border, Lake Erie. Most people see it as a pretty lake, a place for summer vacations and fishing. But for 2 centuries, Lake Erie has been Ohio's ocean. Here's what that means. A freighter loaded with iron, or in Duluth, Minnesota can sail across the Great Lakes, to the Welland Canal, down the St. Lawrence Seaway, and reach Europe without ever touching salt water. Ohio sits on the southern shore of that entire route. Cleveland, Toledo, these cities did not become industrial giants by accident. They became industrial giants because ships could haul iron or coal and grain in and out by the millions of tons every single year. Ohio's 9 Lake Erie ports handle between 55 and 60 million tons of cargo annually. That is not a lake number. That is a coastal harbor number. And here's the detail that makes it even more powerful. Lake Erie is the shallowest of all the Great Lakes. Most people assume that is a weakness. It is actually an advantage. Shallow water warms faster and freezes later, which means Ohio's ports stay open longer into winter than ports further north. When ice locks up Duluth and Thunder Bay, freighters are still loading steel in Cleveland. Ohio has ocean-level access without the ocean. That single advantage powered the rise of the American steel industry. And it powered something else too, a political reality that has shaped every presidential election for the last 60 years. Since 1964, Ohio has voted for the winning presidential candidate in 14 out of 15 elections. No other swing state comes close. Political scientists call it a bellwether, a state whose vote predicts the nation's vote. But why Ohio? The answer is not demographics. It is not history. It is not culture. It is geography. Ohio's landscape is a perfect physical cross-section of America. The same glaciers that flattened the state also made it easy to build roads and railways in every direction. Interstate 70 runs east-west. Interstate 71 runs north-south. Interstate 75 cuts diagonally from Toledo to Cincinnati. Every major population center in Ohio is connected to every other one. That physical connectivity created something rare, a state with no dominant region. Ohio cities are not as massive as New York or Los Angeles. Its rural areas are not as isolated as the Great Plains. Its suburbs are not as wealthy as those ringing Chicago. Ohio is exactly average in age, in income, in the urban-rural split. And because Ohio is average, Ohio is a mirror. When America is angry, Ohio is angry. When America is optimistic, Ohio is optimistic. When America is divided almost exactly in half, Ohio is divided almost exactly in half. Political campaigns know this. They flood Ohio's interstate corridors with advertising, rallies, and visits, chasing the voters who statistically look most like the national average. Ohio does not just reflect America's choices. Ohio predicts them. But here is what almost nobody talks about. What is happening to Ohio's economy right now is unlike anything in the state's history. Most people think of Ohio as Rust Belt, steel mills that closed, auto plants that moved, cities that emptied. That story is real, but it is not the whole story. Because the same flat land that glaciers built for farming and that railroads turned into an industrial corridor is now becoming something completely different. Outside Columbus, Meta has built a data campus covering hundreds of acres of former farmland, 6 massive buildings, $3.5 billion invested, hundreds of megawatts of power. Google followed, Amazon followed, Microsoft followed. They are all betting billions on Ohio farmland. Why? Flat land is cheap to build on. Power infrastructure already exists from the industrial era. The highway and rail network connects Ohio to every major market in the country. And fiber optic cables now run the same corridors that canals and railroads ran 2 centuries ago. The glaciers flattened Ohio for farming. Farmers built an infrastructure network. Industry used that network to build factories. And now, the digital economy is using that same network to build data centers. Different centuries, different industries, same geography. Ohio's manufacturing output has actually climbed above pre-pandemic levels. More factory jobs exist today than before COVID. And the freight volume crossing the state every year by truck, train, and barge is higher than it has ever been. The Rust Belt story ended. Ohio did not notice. It was already building the next thing. Ohio is the most important state nobody thinks about. Its drainage divide sends water to 2 oceans. Its river drew the line between slavery and freedom. Its lake gave it ocean-level trade access without a coastline. Its flat glacial terrain made it the physical mirror of the entire nation. And right now, its farmland is becoming the foundation of the digital economy. Ohio does not look like much from the outside. It never did. That is exactly the point. The most essential parts of any machine are never the most visible ones. They are the ones everything else runs through. If you want to see the next video, where we look at another American state that hides an impossible geographic secret, subscribe right now. That video goes up next week. And if you found this interesting, This video here is where we broke down why Wisconsin is geologically split into two completely different worlds by an invisible line the last glacier could not cross. See you there.